Welcome in to Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Bubba, today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, and that is Jacksonville State University and the football program. Of course, we all have such history with Jacksonville State University. And, you know, a lot of the members of the show graduated from Jacksonville State. Of course, Greg and I, our dad, the head football coach there for 12 seasons, and we have a lot of ties to Jacksonville State. My goodness, Greg still lives in the Jacksonville area. You're from the Jacksonville area. It just goes on and on. Mom,
I grew up in the shadows of the stadium lots. So.
Yeah. So, and of course, we're going to talk about a new era in Jacksonville State football on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, now moving to Division I and naming Rich Rodriguez as the brand new coach. We call him Rich Rod. Everybody wants to. And Coach Rich Rod joins us on Rick and Bubba University. Coach, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's good to talk with you guys.
And welcome to Jacksonville State University and to Calhoun County, the county that spawned the Rick and Bubba show.
How about that? I'm so fortunate to be here. There's a lot of history, great history here, as you guys are well aware, and we're hoping to make some more of ourselves.
Yeah, we have to kind of start on a somber note, remembering Calvin McGee. You were supposed to be on with us last week, and we got the tragic news that Coach McGee was being rushed to the hospital and unfortunately did not survive, passed away. And I know there's a memorial service and funeral coming up this weekend. So just take a minute to reflect on the great coaching career of Calvin McGee.
Yeah, Calvin McGee is, I just say I can describe him in 4 words. He was the best. I've known him for 25 years. He's been with me, coaching with me for 22. Right by my side every step of the way in a lot of my places. And, you will never find a single person that's worked or played or been associated with Coach McGee that would ever say anything negative about him. He was a great coach, great husband, great father, and a great personal friend. And it was so tragic. And his wife, Rose, and his kids are being really strong. But, I miss him. I miss him already dearly. He's just very, very special person, and I know the service will be hard to get through on Saturday, but it's going to be more of a celebration of who he was. And we've got a great loss, obviously, for him. He was going to be my top assistant as he was at other places here at JSU, and I'm not even thinking about what's next in the program. Just want to get through Saturday first, but love Calvin McGee.
Coach, you really burst on the national scene when you were at West Virginia. You made them a powerhouse team, a top 5 finisher, and you were known for your offense. Tell us a little bit about your offensive thoughts and how all that's going to play in at Jacksonville State.
Well, it really started back in 1990 at Glenville State. I took over the job and it was probably the best job in America to take over from the standpoint. The year before, they were shut out 8 times, only scored 20 points the entire year. So we would get a standing ovation for a first down. So what are we going to do? Let's try something different. And at the time, the run and shoot was in a little bit in the NFL, but it was all under center. And so we said, well, let's go in the shotgun. And then let's do our own version of the so-called run and shoot. But also let's just go with a fast tempo. Because as a defensive coach, when I first started coaching, the hardest thing to defend was the 2-minute drill. You ever watch a game and a team doesn't do nothing until they get their up-tempo offense before the end of the half, and end of the game they go up and down the field, and you're thinking, why don't they do that the whole game? So we're like, what the hell? What do we got to lose? Let's just do that the whole game. And we started that in 1990, and it kind of took off a little bit, but not very many people knew about it because it's NAI Division II. And when I got to Tulane and Clemson, we did the same thing and had some success. That's when the offense kind of took off a little bit, and we've been doing it ever since. You modify it every year. You try to learn every year, get things better. But the base of it started 30 years ago.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you about. When you start an offense and no one has really seen it or they've faced it, then defenses really struggle with it. But, there's great defensive coaches out there. You said you coached on the defensive side of the ball. So over time they make adjustments, and then you have to make adjustments. So how deep into you running this did you realize, all right, now it's time to modify, and what were some of the modifications you made?
Well, you do. It's like I always talk about coaches sometimes brag, well, they got 20 years experience or 25 years experience. But if all they did was the same thing every year and didn't learn and grow, you just got 1 year experience repeated 25 times, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
get a little bit better, learn a little thing. And as we started doing it more in Division I level, obviously more eyeballs are on it, more people are going to use it and do it. And so you got to be able to adjust. And so we tried to do that over the years. It used to be 75% pass, and then it became at West Virginia, it became like 60 or 70% run, and now it's probably more balanced. And more teams are doing what they call RPOs now. We were doing 15, 20 years ago. But at the same time, we still think, defensive coaches are going to adjust and they're going to adapt, and you got to do the same thing offensively. So we've tried to add some tweaks and all that. But some of the things that are non-negotiable is how fast we play and how hard our expectation is for our guys to play on all three phases of the game.
Coach, get your chalk out a little bit, talking about that type of offense. Obviously, the speed is a factor. You're trying to keep the defense from being able to adjust. But do you have to adjust your formations and your sets to get them confused when you go to the line of scrimmage? And how important is getting isolation matchups that you want maybe a fast guy in a slot position that has to be covered by a linebacker?
Yeah, I think a lot of the matchups, particularly with all the man coverage that you see nowadays, you'll hear a lot of times in the NFL, it's all about matchups and all that. And so you try to do that formationally. And I think probably one of the simplest things to make yourself look more complicated than what you really are is using a variety of formations, whether you're putting formation to the boundary or unbalanced formations or things that create headaches for the defense. And that's the thing we always look at, that, okay, what makes it simple for us, but it makes it more complicated for the guys that got to defend it. So we're always constantly looking at that. Formations is one way to do it. And again, tempo is always a big part of it. I still think the most overlooked factor in sports at all levels, most sports, active sports anyway, is conditioning. And we still think we can make that a factor, even though, there's timeouts and injuries and sometimes fake injuries or whatever, try to put it down. I think conditioning still is a big factor in how we practice. The way we practice, we think helps us get in better shape than our opponent.
Well, that's the thing I've always talked about. Sometimes when fans watch football, it's like almost they think one side of the ball isn't in the game, when they're talking about the other side. People talk about the tempo, and they're like, well, it really, really, really tires the defense out. They really get tired. But the offense has got to be in shape enough to actually run the tempo, to your point. So if your offense, and defense too, but if your offense isn't in great condition, the tempo also, speaking from someone who played, with a hand in the dirt, especially those guys. When you don't have the huddle and you don't have time to recoup, they got to be in shape to actually run the tempo, and I think sometimes that's overlooked.
Yeah, and part of it again is everybody kind of runs in the summer, does conditioning, runs during August camp, gets their guys in shape. But how much conditioning do you do during the season? And a lot of coaches are worried about are we doing too much? Are their legs going to be fresh for the game and all that? But I think the way you practice, we don't practice long, but when we do, it's pretty intense. And it is up tempo. And we try to think we're going to get a lot more plays in at a full speed than just about anybody that we play against. And that's not only does that give our offense in shape, because our defense is doing the same practice, they got to be in shape as well. And so I think when you get to that point where your guys understand how fast and how hard you play on every play, it becomes a common for them and easier for them to do it every play on Saturdays.
Coach, let me ask you too. A lot of times when you're doing a fast-paced offense, you can get on and off the field pretty quick. Don't give your defense enough of a rest. And I know a lot of conversation the last few years since it's become more popular. How do you manage that for the defensive side? Are there times where you need to give them a more of a rest, or is that just, hey, you got to suck it up and go with it? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I think obviously you got to think about that if you're struggling, getting a lot of 3 and outs. I always tell the team we like to get, if we can get a 2-score lead going in the fourth quarter, then we're going to start milking the clock and taking it from there. But I also think you got to try to get a lot of guys ready to play. And that's easier said than done. It's hard to put your backups in, but one of the goals that we have is we want to play more players than anybody in the country. That means we got to have more players ready to play at a high level. And that's going to be important for us defensively and offensively, but especially defensively, that we don't play just 12, 13, or 14 guys. We got to get 25 guys or so ready to play during the games, and we make a point of that during practice.
All right, so we're going to come back. We're going to continue our conversation. We're talking with Coach Rich Rod. He's now the head football coach at Jacksonville State University. A lot of things changing at Jacksonville State University, including the move to Division I. We'll kind of talk about that, and then more, looking into the life of Coach and some of the things he's been through. I know some of you, there's a story he is sick and tired of talking about, but if you're doing a podcast, everybody's going to say. So we're going to try to let him, in his own words, tell you exactly the legendary story about Alabama and Nick Saban and what role that Coach Rich Rod played in that, and let him tell us exactly what happened, as opposed to maybe some of the things you have been told might have happened. We'll actually hear the truth from the man who was in that situation when we come back on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. All right, we're back on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Our coach is Coach Rich Rod, who now is coaching at Jacksonville State. Of course, we talked a little bit about your time at West Virginia, and, of course, your time in the NAIA, and then to Michigan, and then recently at Arizona. And now at Jacksonville State University, after spending some time at Ole Miss and Louisiana Monroe. So Jacksonville State was, Division II, had a lot of success at Division II, including a national championship. They go to 1AA. They work their way to the top of the 1AA level of football. And I know I'm not using the modern names, but to me it'll always be Division I, 1AA, 2, and 3. I know
we just stay with that, Coach. We don't want to change
that. I mean, I'm 57. There's no changing it now. But anyway, so Jacksonville State has been through transitions, and they seem over time to find their way back to the top
prominence
of whatever level they're playing. You've been brought in to coach Jacksonville State with a new endeavor, and that's Division I. And then I think next season, not the one coming up, but the one after, a new conference. And so what do you, when you land on the ground in Jacksonville, Alabama, with a program that's had success at other divisions, what have you got to do for Jacksonville State to be competitive at this next step?
Well, you're right. I tell everybody we've been successful. JSU's been successful at every level. Won at Division II, took their time when they moved up, and won in Division I AA, and doing the same thing now. We're not just jumping in to jump in. We're jumping in and building a new facility, making a commitment to have success, getting to a conference that we think is rebranding itself. We're going to have success as well. So I'm in a place that football is important, and where winning is important, and they've always won here. So it's not a place where you come in and say, well, we're going to try to win for the first time. No, now winning it'll be for the first time at the 1AA level or 1A level. And it costs more money. Let's face it, and the school realizes that to compete at the Division 1A level costs more money, facility-wise, staffing-wise, and that is a work in progress and something we're doing daily. But the school is totally committed. We got a great administration. We've got some very helpful people that, from a donation standpoint, from donors, from people who love our program, and I've got a really good staff put together. And I think our players understand it's another step up for us as well.
Coach, what will you be measuring success against? Playing at Division I, the playoffs. That's a lofty goal. But what would you consider, or what is your marker for success in the program down the road?
First thing you try to do is try to win a league championship. If you're in a league, I think that's probably your first goal, is to try to win a league championship. Certainly you want to get in the bowl games every year if you can't. That's always a goal. And then, you're right. I mean, to say, okay, we're going to be in the CFP, we're going to play for a national championship. There's a difference between those that are in the SEC and the Big Ten and the money and the revenue that they spend. Can you get to that level? Cincinnati was there last year, and it took them how many years to get there, and they're funded at a whole different level than a lot of Group of Fives are. So I don't like to make unrealistic goals. I like to tell our guys if we do a great job, win our league, win our bowl game, and if they expand and get 8 to 12 teams, whatever, we get a chance to play, and we're good enough. But that's good. That's way off off the thing. I just want to be as good as we can from the start and try to win a league championship first.
All right, we'll come back to that, but I know there's no one that's listening to this podcast. They're all going, ask him about the Alabama thing, and I know that you're
probably tired of
and
talking
you're so
about
tired
it.
of this story. You're so tired of this story, but and I know you've made the joke that Alabama fans should thank you for Saban. But I want to drill down and once and for all, and you've probably told other people, but maybe I missed it. Surely you've talked about this. I want you to talk about the process that you and your family went through when you were, and some of you watching this and listening may not have known this, but because Saban has now been at Alabama for so long, but you were in a position where the Alabama job was yours if you wanted it, and this was the transition that Alabama was making that eventually would get them to Saban. So tell us what really was the thought process for you that said, I just don't think at this time this job is right for me, or in this stage of my life, this is a no. What led to the not taking of that job?
Yeah, it was. I think it's been probably a lot of false things going on. It was after Coach Saban had first turned it down, and I really didn't have Alabama on the radar. I didn't have anybody on the radar because we were pretty good at West Virginia at the time. In fact, we had a young team, and we had a lot of guys coming back. We were in the top 10 in the country and all that. And I guess Coach Saban had initially said he wasn't coming. And so I was in New York for a Hall of Fame thing that we went to every year to celebrate. Everybody's going in College Football Hall of Fame. While I was up there, I met with Mal Moore and some of the Alabama officials about their opening. This is after Coach Saban had initially said no. And we had a great meeting. They showed me some plans for facility and all that. And it was a good conversation. And I was interested because it's Alabama, right?
Sure.
When I went home, I did not ever tell them I was taking a job. I tell them I would talk about it, would be interested. I wanted to talk to the folks in West Virginia first before I gave them any answer one way or another. And when I got back to West Virginia, we were getting ready to play in the Gator Bowl, and I had a function down in Jacksonville. And I talked to some of our donors or friends from West Virginia. And during that press conference and the couple hours after that, they came together and came up with a package for our program, for our staff that enticed me to stay at West Virginia. So I just decided to stay. I never told them that I was anybody at Alabama, I was coming and all that. But obviously you got to be interested because it's Alabama, right?
Right.
So there were rumors that my wife said she didn't want to live in Alabama. That was false. There was rumors that I had taken the job and then decided not to take it afterwards. That was false. I just was interested because it was Alabama. But at the time, we were in a pretty good spot at West Virginia, and the donor stepped up and all that. As fate would have it, the following year I did leave. And one of the reasons I left then to go to Michigan was some of the things that the donors gave to the school didn't follow through with. In other words, they were using the money for purposes that wasn't supposed to be. And so that wasn't the only reason why, but that was one reason why I was like, geez, I want to win a national championship. And I got people donating to our program. And we went through this before, and I didn't know if I could trust everything that was happening at West Virginia at the time to keep going with it. So I made a move. And, obviously you can look back and look back with regret, whatever. Should I take an Alabama job? I didn't think twice about it because we were so good at West Virginia at the time. But as I told everybody, it worked out great for Alabama because they came back around with Coach Saban, and they got the greatest college football coach of all time.
Yeah, I really do. I remember following this. I did not know that Saban had turned it down. I forgot about that. But I wouldn't, and that's important to remember. But it's almost like when you decided not to take it, they were like, well, by golly. We got to get a football coach. The fans were getting angry, and I think that you did a service to Alabama and Coach Saban, because then they said we're going to do whatever we got to do to get him to take it.
You probably got him a little more money.
I think he owes you.
Coach up and say, hey, what about that deal? But they at Alabama's history, and having gone through the state recruiting wise and being here now, you understand how important football is when you're here, and I could sense that. I mean, anybody that follows college football where you're at now, geez, that's Alabama. That's why I wasn't going to talk to anybody about any job at the time, but it's Alabama, right? And so I'm in New York. I'm like, geez, I got an opportunity to sit and talk to them about their job. You'd be crazy not to, no matter where you're at. But it didn't work out at the time. or didn't have, the timing wasn't perfect for me, but it worked out great for Alabama since then.
Well, and I think a lot of people forget because now they've been good for so long. And then when I say this, somebody's going to say, "What is he talking about? Rick's lost his mind." Alabama they were struggling. The program had kind of fallen off. If you don't believe that, just go back and look at Saban's first year when he first got there. So don't picture that Alabama was sitting where they are now. They had been there in the past, but it had fallen off a little bit. And so the job, it didn't quite look the way it would look if you went there, say now either. Yeah. But obviously it was the right fit for Alabama and the right fit for Saban, and it worked out. But I'm glad you dispelled some of the rumors. So it also wasn't because you actually turned on some of the sports radio in Alabama and your family said, "We want no part of this."
The Rick and Bubba show, was that going on back then?
It was. We were in the early years, but definitely going on.
Coach, NIL has been in the news a lot lately. What does that look like at a smaller and now new Division I school, and how is that playing into the Gamecocks and your plan for taking that program to the next level?
You mean now it's legal? Is that what it means?
Yes. Yeah. That's what we hear.
Yeah, everything has changed in college football in the last 12 months or a year and a half. Not only that, the coaches will tell you basically have an unlimited salary cap and open free agency. It's a different dynamic to think that it's not that way. It is that way. Even going by the rules. And as coaches, you got to try to adapt a little bit. I would tell our staff here, the goalposts have moved and we got to move with it. It's not as much a factor at the group of five level. We don't have that kind of resources out there that are going to be able to give our players that much fun. I'd love to. I like the chance, the opportunity for players to earn some money. But I said it all along that, it wasn't a really bad deal that the players were anyone. They gave them a cost of attendance and be able to feed them without having the money come out of their checks and all that. It wasn't a bad gig. But the genie's out of the bottle. Your players are going to get paid now. So what do we got to do to fix some of this inequities, whatever you want to call it, where some schools are basically, I don't want to say pay for play, but some guys they're basically having a professional model without professional rules. And you got to have rules and guidelines to be able to have fair play, right? And the haves are going to be the haves, and the have-nots are going to be have-nots. You're just going to separate even more now. But I think one of the things you got to have is you're going to have contracts. Players got to have contracts. Or, it's crazy that, if a player wants to come, to me, if a player wants to come, you want to give him a 4-year or 3-year contract, scholarship, what have you, and he wants to leave after 3 months, well, then he's got to pay out his contract. Because part of the reason was people said, well, coaches can get up and leave at their own free will. I know I did that, but I had to honor my contract and pay what was on my contract. So the players got to do the same thing. And I think that once we get a little bit of structure on this deal, it'll make some more sense of it. But right now it's a mess, and everybody knows it's a mess, and we got to get some guardrails or some guidelines to fix it.
Coach, let me ask you about Jacksonville State in particular. Growing up, watching football there, I went to a lot of games that the stadium was absolutely packed because we had some really good rivalries, and people love to get behind rivalries. The move to 1AA, we lost some of that. You see that in the stands. You see that in the passion for who we're playing because you didn't have a history with them. What is the chance of seeing some of those rivalries renewed, most notably Troy, which was the Troy and Jack State rivalry was kind of like Auburn, Alabama at the Division II level. Schools like that or some of the other regional schools that are here in the state that Jack State fans would love a chance to see in the stadium.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's some natural rivalries, as you mentioned, but Troy moved up, and then obviously UAB started in South Alabama. We have some 3 right in state that we could be rivals with. Are we going to beat Alabama and Auburn? No, we're not there. But at Troy, we should be able to compete with Troy. We should be able to compete with UAB. We should be able to compete with South Alabama. And those would be great things.
Sanford,
and, yeah. League, it'd been nice to be in the Sun Belt, but we had to get into a conference, and Conference USA needed teams. And so that's where it worked out. Now, we want to get a home and home or something like that in the future. That'll probably be a pretty good game and be interesting for our fans. So we'll see what happens in the future. I think a lot of us grew. I think to me, I think there's going to be a seismic shift in Division I football. I think the Power Fives may try to separate, or the Power Fives and Group of Fives will separate from the NCAA and have its own governing body, and it's heading that way. And it probably needs to head that way, and that'll change everybody's scheduling, I think, coming up in a few years.
All right, we'll come out. We'll continue our conversation with Rich Rod when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues. All right, so a lot of times, Bubba, we deal with this even on the show. People talking about, well, I got to have this product, but I can't find all the companies that are inside this category. They're far to the left. I don't agree with how they do things. I've got the month of June coming up. There's going to be things going on there that I don't agree with. I don't want to be part of, but I got nowhere else to go because I don't have any other choices. Well, when it comes to your cellular service, that's different because you actually have a choice, and that's patriotmobile.com/Rick Bubba. Now, what that means is you get the same nationwide coverage, because you and I have been talking about this for years. You're not going to get anybody to come along and be with your product out of guilt. It needs to be through merit. So you're not going to be downgrading. But this is America's only Christian conservative cell phone provider. The same nationwide coverage as the major carriers, so you get the same great service, plus peace of mind that your money, is actually going to a company that seems to share the same values and worldview that you might. It's your choice. Patriot Mobile has plans to fit any budget. They're a 100% U.S.-based customer support team. We've been talking about that on the show. Exceptional customer service. And you can go right now, and if you're a veteran or a first responder, we have even a better deal for you. So you get free activation with the offer code Rick Bubba. And as I said, there's even more for veterans and first responders. So, look, we can. You do have a choice, and you have great service with a company that shares your values. PatriotMobile.com/Rick Bubba, or call 972-PATRIOT. So we're back on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Rich Rodriguez is with us, the coach at Jacksonville State University. And, Bubba, we were talking about, as we took a quick break there, about, developing some rivalries. We got a new opportunity and a new conference coming up, Division I now. And what do we do to bring fans back to Burgess Snow Stadium?
Coach, I wanted to ask you, too, because this is questions I'm being asked, and I don't know what to tell people. When Jack State's sitting there as a 1AA or bowl, was it championship? I can't. I'm like you, Rick. I can't remember.
Just do the
1AA. Yeah. They would schedule a Division I team every year and get paid a big paycheck to play them, and every now and then upset some of these folks. I know they upset Ole Miss a few years ago.
Had Auburn on the ropes.
Carried Auburn to overtime, and then defeated Florida State down in Tallahassee last year. Do those kind of matchups go away now that you're Division I? Will people not pay you that amount, or how does that work now that you're a Division I school?
It's actually going to be easier for us to schedule that, because I think there has some hesitation probably to schedule a 1AA, so to speak. I used to say the same thing, 1AA. And now that we're going to be 1A, it's going to be a little bit easier for those teams to justify their fans. Hey, we needed to bring a home game in. We can schedule another 1A team from the Group of Five. That's where we'll be at. In fact, I think next year we have South Carolina. We have a few other schools we'll talk about in the future. So we'll play one every year, we think, from here going forward. And so our opportunities to play them will be increased. Do we want to play a bunch of them every year? No, but playing one every year for money sounds like a pretty good deal for us. So
will the Florida State matchup continue, or does South Carolina take their place next year?
Well, South Carolina is just a one-year deal. And then I like to look at, you want to kind of keep it regionally.
Right.
So you don't country a little bit, but you also want something that'll be interesting for your fans. And so every year we're going to work on we'll probably have one every year, a Power 5 1A team on our schedule. So that'll be fun for our fans. It won't be here at our place. It'll be at their place, and we'll get a nice paycheck for it.
Yeah, and like I say, there's a history with Jacksonville State, and this is what I was concerned about. Sometimes you've been on both ends of this. You look at a team, you go, "There's nothing we have to gain by scheduling that bunch." I mean, they're a handful. If they beat us, it's a huge deal for them. Then it's bad for us. If we beat them, all everybody says is, "Well, yeah, you should have beat them." So when you're 1AA.
Right, that's what we want to do. Get good enough they don't want to schedule.
Right. Well, back when you were saying about the good thing about being Division I, when you're 1AA, you have a harder time because even if they beat you, you saw this in 2004 with the Auburn team that went undefeated. Remember, they had a cancellation, picked up a 1AA school. They won, but they got punished for it when it got down to who was going to be in the championship game. Right. So, yeah, the 1AA I would think would be more difficult than being a smaller 1A.
Yeah, no, there's no question. And our scheduling is all, and I think the pandemic year probably taught a lot of coaches and ADs that you don't have to schedule games 10 years in advance, 8 years in advance. You can make matchups in the next couple, 2-3 years. And so that's what we're all going through right now. And again, I think there's going to be a seismic shift in a lot of things in the next, 8 to 12 months. And that'll probably make it, I would say, easier for all of us to schedule our games, but it'll be unique. And I think everything's on the table. And you guys probably discussed it, whether it's expanding the playoffs or keeping the playoffs and separating Group of Five and Power Five or what have you. But there's a lot of options on the table right now for college football.
Yeah, and see, Bub, we're playoff people. Where are you on that, Coach? Are you pro expanding the playoff?
Well, yeah, selfishly, I would be now. Expand it to 12. I tease my coaches. I said, we should just be like the Ivies, just play 10 games and then call it a wrap. If we played a 12 or 16-team playoff, it would minimize the bowls, which are already getting minimized somewhat in my opinion. The bowls are great. So I hate to do that. Eight sounds like a good number, and there's money involved. Selfishly, if we went to 8 teams and the revenue increased and the revenue sharing would increase and we get a bigger piece of the pie at Jack State, then, hey, let's have more in the playoffs. But I think the SEC and the Power Fives would probably not want to expand it, keep more of the money and keep more of the spots for themselves. That's my opinion, but that could change.
Coach, I was curious, too, when you recruit and you go in and sit down with some of these young men and try to talk them into coming to Jacksonville and playing for you. Some of them may be recruited by Auburn or Alabama. A lot of them, I would assume, are being recruited by UAB, South Alabama, Troy. What do you tell them? What kind of sales pitch do you put on them to try to close the deal?
Yeah, you're right. And there's a dynamic now that if you find a guy from out of high school that maybe now people don't know about and develop, and he winds up being a great player for you, he might leave and go to a bigger school, get more money, get more prestige, whatever, to go to a bigger school. So you put all the work in, and then the other team, the bigger schools, get more benefits. And so that's a concern. But I still think you got to recruit high school, especially high schools in your state, in your area. So we are doing that. We signed 17 high school guys this year, and I thought we'd only go half high school, half portal guys. So they're out there. What we're trying to sell is, listen, you're going to have a new facility, an area that loves football, and football is important too. We're in a new league, and it's a great opportunity to showcase your ability on a national stage in a place that loves football. And this is a great town too. I mean, you guys know this. You know what a wonderful little town we are in Jacksonville, Alabama. So we got a lot of things to sell. We still got to look at the transfer guys simply because that'll help get you some immediate help. But high school football in this state is really, really important. And there's a lot of good high school players, and we're certainly going to recruit them.
Well, and you go back to what Bubba was talking about, putting, and we're not, I mean, Jacksonville still got a lot of people coming to the games, but we want to get back to the, when the stadium, was full. And one of the things that I think helped with that is, and you don't just go take a player just because of where he plays and where he's from. That's not going to help the program. But you keep the same standard. But like you said, if you can find that player that can play at this level that comes from high schools in the state, that also brings more interest from fans and from the community that says, oh, yeah, I remember this kid. He played for so-and-so. I want to see how he's doing. I want to go see him now play for the our college team.
Aunts and uncles, cousins can come watch.
You start getting everybody. Now, again, you still got to have the same level. It's not a charity recruit, but to kind of have that in mind really helps.
Yeah, now they also have a sense of pride playing for their local school.
Yeah.
That understand how important football is, and it is big for them to represent their local high school, represent their in-state high school here. And so you find that I like to think that no matter where you're from, once you're here, you're going to play as hard as you can, for your school, for your family, for yourself. But if you're a local guy, you're going to have probably a little bit more sense of pride in for the local high schools and local your local fans that come out to watch you. So there always is going to be that, and we keep that in mind. And plus, you ain't worried about them getting homesick. And it used to be guys wanted to transfer because they wanted to come back closer to home. We hope that, like in a transfer portal, the first thing we look at, are they from Alabama? Are they from an hour and a half or 2 hours away from here? Well, it's Alabama or Georgia. So we use that come back home kind of appeal to draw some transfers to come here to Jacksonville State.
All right, we'll come back. We'll finish our conversation today with Rich Rod when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues. All right, so we're visiting with the new coach at Jacksonville State University. And, boy, if you listen to this show, you've heard about Jacksonville State.
Yes, you have.
Yeah,
yes,
and
you have.
We got a great history there. So I want to ask you that question, Coach. You have been at the highest levels. You have been at some incredible schools. So at this point in your coaching career, what drew you to take the job at Jacksonville State University?
Well, I've been asked that a couple times, and first off, I'm fortunate that they gave me an opportunity to interview and look at this job, because football is important here. They're making the transition and putting the money in and doing all the right things to move up to Division I A. They have great history, as you all know, not good history, great history with their football program and their athletics program. So it was just a perfect timing for me. I've kind of been around. I told some other folks I've kind of been around there, did this, did that, and I don't need to take a job to take another job. I've been very fortunate and blessed in my career to now I can just go and find. Let's go take a job. I still have a little itch, feel a little chip on my shoulder, what have you, to prove myself again. And I wanted to do it at a place where football is important. It's a great place to coach at, and this was a perfect fit. And I feel fortunate that they give me a shot, and we want to win. I'm not looking to win here and do something else. I want to try to win as many games and some championships as I can at Jacksonville State. Then we'll see what happens. I'm at that age now. I'm not over the hill, but I'm on the. So I'm very blessed to have an opportunity to maybe get this program launched on the 1A level. And I can draw from some of your all's experience, the experience they've had here. And I use that all the time. I said, when they won here, they were tough. They were hard-nosed. Football was important. They had great coaches. There was a lot of pride in Jacksonville State and Jacksonville State football. And we're drawing on that for our current players as we speak.
Coach, I want to clarify, will you play in the new conference this year, or is that next year?
Next year. We're kind of in transition right now. We're playing mostly a 1AA schedule. We got Tulsa as the 1A team, but basically a 1AA schedule. And then next year, year 23, is our first year in Conference USA.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's and I
thought you'd said that, Rick. I wanted to be sure.
Yeah,
because I get asked that a lot.
It's me too.
A little confusion and transition.
We talked about that at the golf tournament, and you had kind of said that, but I want to be sure that I had that right. So this is that year where really we'll be kind of nomadic, and we're just taking on all comers, and and trying to get this program headed in the right direction. And what one of the things you were talking about, that is a legitimate concern when you're a smaller school and you have someone like you that's been at the highest level and you took that on. Well, he's going to come here and we're not going to be able to hang on to him. He's trying to transition to the next thing. And I hear you saying, look, I've been there, done that. This is a different phase of my life too. You're a football coach who likes to coach, and it's kind of an exciting prospect that's in front of you. I mean, you're getting to say, I know where we've been, but I know where this program wants to go, and what an honor to be able to be someone who's going to try to take them there.
Yeah, and I didn't rent. I bought a house. Here in town, about a mile and a half from campus. So we're settled in and we're putting our roots in here. And as I said, this is an easy. I'm from a small town anyway in West Virginia. You know, actually Coach Saban, Coach Fisher, and myself are all from the same little area. And there's some. Don't ask me any questions about that deal, but this reminds me very much from where I'm from and where my family's from. And so this is a great fit. I'm just, like I said, I feel very fortunate and appreciative of the opportunity I have.
Yeah, I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday. We were friends from second grade on, Mickey Shadricks, and he has the big time place down there in Oxford, the big entertainment thing, and he said that he got to meet you, and that's a great place to take recruits and go down and let them have a big day.
Yeah, it's and we got a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of things in place. You guys are well aware of what we already have in place here. And now moving to Division I, I always tell Greg, our AD, Greg Seitz, that, hey, it just costs a little bit more to go first class, right? Well, it costs probably a little more than a little more. There's involved in that, but our school has made that commitment. Our staff has made that commitment, and I think our players have. I've got a great group of young men. I'm really excited about coaching.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, when you look at the guys that are there right now, I mean, I know you're out recruiting. They didn't exactly leave the cupboard dry, did they?
No, the only thing is I sometimes got to remember these guys were recruited at the 1AA level, and we are moving up. And so sometimes I look and say, gosh, I wish we were a little faster, a little bit bigger. Well, for the level they were at, they're good players. What we're obviously moving up. And so I told our staff, we've got to recruit at a higher level. We got to get our guys developed that we have right now, because we have some 1A players, and we've got to get them to help to increase their game as well. But we do have some really good football players, and I think they've bought in, and I'm excited to work with them.
Yeah. What do you think? We got about 3 minutes. So to go to 1A, what is the big step, the big difference? I know 1AA has some outstanding players. Is it just there's not as many? At 1A, every single player is 1A level. 1AA, some are, some aren't. Is that the biggest transition?
Yeah, you're looking at it from a bird's eye view. Looking at there are some, but probably don't have the same size. Obviously, you're not probably as fast. On certain positions, fast up front on the defensive line, fast on offense on the perimeter. So you're probably not quite as fast all across the board. And you're certainly not as big as you would be on a 1A team. But again, that's our job to recruit to that. And we've, counting walk-ons and transfers and guys, we've got about 50 new players coming in. And so we've got about half of the roster is going to be new starting our fall camp. But the half that we got coming back are some pretty good players too. So we just got to get to work and have a great summer.
Well, Coach, I know there's a lot of excitement about landing you as a coach, and hopefully that will spill over into recruiting and all the other aspects, fundraising. And I think Jack State has a bright future, and being an alumni, we're excited about it.
Yeah, we are.
Well, and I appreciate you guys too. I know you're alumni, and you spoke very highly of the JSU and have part of their great history. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on. Let's do it again.
All right, I got to say one thing. Just doing a little football, just X's and O's. Defensively, are you multiple? What do you do defensively?
Pretty much. Zach Alley, our defensive coordinator, is a young guy I worked with at Monroe. Very, very sharp. I've got a great defensive staff, and he's pretty multiple. Nowadays, you got to play a lot of multiple things because of spread offenses, and we'll be more nickel oriented, play more 5 DBs than 4 DBs. But up front, we're gonna be a multitude of both an odd front and an even front, and bring a lot of pressure. I want to be very aggressive, and we hope, as I said earlier, we hope to be able to play 24, 25 guys every game defensively, if not more.
Yeah, like you said, that's one thing that was the reputation of this program is hard-nosed and not afraid to hit you. So and play very, very aggressive on defense too. So
and hard is not an option. And our guys, I think they got a message through the spring that if nothing else, fundamentally and all that, we got to help them develop. but playing as hard as you can is not an option. And our guys will do that.
Yeah, I used to say that doesn't require any expertise or talent. Everybody can play hard.
So, Coach, when is the first game when you will actually take the field?
We open up week 0 against Stephen F. Austin down in the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. That's actually going to be on national TV, ESPN, not the ESPN Plus or 2 or 3 or whatever. It's on regular ESPN on August 27th. So
you picked a nice, easy opponent to start with.
Here we go.
Very good 1AA team. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And because we open up week 0, we start practice a week earlier in the late July. So we're going to get ready for that.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate you being with us. And
best of luck.
Yeah, and we look forward to being part of it. And thanks to all of you for catching this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.